Hello my friends, and welcome to another episode where I show you the progress of the medieval alphabet. So far we've animated an arrow, a bomb, a dancing city, and a dragon. This time we have the elf again. It's part 2. I keep working on this little animation. In this video you will see the rough animation, while I also share tips on how not to get overwhelmed with your digital projects, particularly animation. Let's dive into it. When starting an animation from an existing artwork, the first thing that you want to do is identify the different parts of your animation that need to be animated. For example, for the elf animation, I would separate the front arm, then take the body, possibly separate the front leg as well, then the hair, the arrow that he's going to grab to then later shoot with the bow and arrow, and the expression, of course, that's what gives it personality. And let's also not forget the things that are not visible at the beginning, like the hand at the back that will later become visible. That's how I initially broke off my elf. This also leads me to my first tip, which is to split your animation into separate parts. Depending on your animation style and preference, you might want to take each of these parts and put them in separate layers. That gives you nice overview and also full control of each of the animated parts. However, sometimes by doing that, the amount of layers that you have to work with can become a bit too many. So also consider that. Limit the amount of layers that you use. For example, in my rough animation that you will see shortly, I am only working with one layer, but I am working on the different parts that I have identified in different passes. So for example, in my first pass, I might not even consider looking at the hair at all, especially because it's a secondary action, and I will look at that at a later stage in the entirety of my timeline. Ultimately, the main goal here is for you to focus on very specific areas rather than trying to do everything at once. So every time you switch from a leg to a face to hair, depending on your animation, there's also switching costs involved. So you're constantly changing what you're thinking about, and that can get exhausting and energy draining. After all the effort of separating those parts into different layers, I noticed that something wasn't feeling quite right. So I checked some references to see how is it that actually arrows are shot, and I realized that my actual drawing was not correct. It's called a T posture, the way arrows have to be shot, and usually it's not with the body sort of at a perpendicular level when you're looking towards the front, but you're actually in line with the front arm that is all the way stretched out, and the other arm helps form that T posture that I was just explaining. This forced me to start my animation from scratch. I was almost done with my initial rough animation, and here I had a choice to either just finish it with the mistake that I had identified or start all over again. And so that's tip number 2. It is okay to start over again. It is okay to make mistakes and to learn along the way. It is also okay if the animation is going to take you a lot longer than you originally anticipated. The key thing is that you're learning along the process and that you're proud of the quality of the work that you put out. So imagine you wouldn't fix the mistake and you share your artwork. Maybe somebody points it out, or even if you don't share it with anybody else, deep down inside you will always know that that is not quite correct. And this is not a disguised perfectionism. By all means, finish your project. That's priority number 1. But if you are not yet too far along the project, so like I had my rough animation ready, but I hadn't yet done the colors, the shadows, and all the kind of the finishing touches, which take the longest. Had I been a lot further down the road, I might not have started from scratch again, but I would have made a point in the future to do another archery artwork with the correct positioning. Tip number 3 is very connected, and it's all about having patience and just simply accepting the things that are thrown your way that are going to affect your project. I would have loved to publish last Friday the elf animation to just kind of maintain the rhythm that I have been trying to, but it was never going to happen, especially after I realized that I had to kind of start from scratch. It was just going to require a lot more time. I could have stressed and panicked and still not be able to publish it Friday, versus just kind of accepting that, well, it is what it is. I'm going to do as much as I can, but I'm going to get the elf animation to the quality that I would like it to have. These are also those moments where you can very easily fall into the trap of doubting your own skills, doubting your ability, or even doubting if you're working hard enough. So be kind to yourself in those moments. I would call these like self-inflicted pressures or self-inflicting stress. So For me, it was the schedule, right? Like the YouTube posting. So think about what is it that you put on yourself that maybe it's not that important, and maybe it is robbing some of that joy that you have when animating. And as I mentioned joy, that leads me to the last tip, which is when to choose efficiency and when to choose joy. One of the days that I was working on the elf, I opened up Clip Studio Paint, and there it was, a new feature called Puppet Warp, which is essentially like a very simple rigging option, which would have made my animation of the elf so much easier, because a lot of the times I was simply moving the joints of the arms and the legs. On the one hand, I was super excited because this is so useful. I have used rigging in other softwares that I have used before, and so it's great to see that Clip Studio Paint is expanding on some of those quite critical features for animation. But now I had the difficult choice. Do I take some time to invest into learning this new tool? It sounds simple to, yes, there's a cool new feature, but the reality is that you end up having to figure out how does it work on this specific program. Even if you've used rigging in other places, it might not be the same. And if you have never done rigging before, you also have to get to grips with that. So it might take you more into a technical space rather than an animation space. And depending on how difficult already the project might be for you, there's no need to add another layer of difficulty. In the past months, I have been changing quite a lot of different software. So as I've mentioned, I'm now working with Clip Studio Paint. I was using Adobe Fresco a lot before. I even changed my video editing software. So I have had a lot of energy invested into technical tools. So in this specific moment, on top of the fact that I already had to redo some of the elements in the elf, I felt like this is not the right moment to invest more time into this Clip Studio Paint feature. But I will definitely be trying it out. There's plenty of more letters to come. So should I be using it, I will be happily sharing how it went with it. The tip here is essentially that it is absolutely important to find ways on how you can be more productive and more efficient, but not at the cost of it robbing your joy and possibly you not finishing your project. Now here's what the original rough animation was going to look like. It just looks a bit boring, a bit stiff. It doesn't have much character. Whereas let's take a look at the other version. This is now the second rough animation that I did after realizing that the pose was incorrect, and come on, it is worlds apart. This one just feels so much more alive, feels like an actual animation, and just so much more vivid. What do you think? And now with all that effort for all these rough animations, I'm confident that the next video will contain the elf animation. And the next letter then in the medieval fantasy alphabet will be the letter F, which is going to be a fire animation. I noticed that my previous how to animate a candle is getting some views, so I'm going to take this opportunity to show you how to animate a fire. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips and tricks. I hope that they were useful and that they help you bring more joy to your projects. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!